So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, broadcast and recorded live on blogtalkradio.com from the new Media and American League Baseball capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. Imagine if, as a stranger, you could see a small town through the eyes of its young boys. You might be privy to images and incidents that you wouldn't otherwise know about, but because the boys aren't a threat, no one considers them such, and they capture it all on a camera. And then imagine that this small town is not the peaceful, pristine image that the city fathers think it is. Now you've got the essence of the plot in the new film Dog Days of Summer, starring Will Patton and directed and produced by Mark Freiburger. And now, meet the director. Mark, welcome to Mr. Media.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to be here. Must be an exciting week for you.
It is. A lot of things going on over the next couple of weeks. I'm just really looking forward to the release date, and it's just been kind of crazy, really. It's sort of the past few months before this were kind of the calm before the storm, and now I'm just getting excited, waiting for this thing to come out.
And this film, of course, has a special significance to you. It's your debut as a director and producer. Tell us about how this experience and the opportunity came about.
Wow, it dates back a few years. When I grew up in North Carolina, where we shot the film. We shot this film in a town called Edenton, North Carolina, which is the historic colonial capital of the state. And when I was 17 years old, my sister was dating a baseball player from UNC Chapel Hill, and I went out that one summer. They were doing this sort of summer college baseball league, and I went out that summer right after graduating high school to go watch them play in a baseball game. And when I was there, I just fell in love with this town. I mean, this town was like the town that time forgot. And it was really, truly like a Norman Rockwell-esque kind of place. I mean, just amazing, you know. So, I was walking around this town at age 17. I was like, someday I'm going to have to make a movie here. Don't know what that's going to be about yet, but, but someday I'd love to do that. So I just kind of filed that away. And over the next few years, when I went off to film school, I went to film school at the North Carolina School of the Arts for 4 years. And met some good guys there and some good writers, and told them about this town, and we started sort of constructing a story of just a film we'd like to make, and something that I felt that would be reasonable and possible to do as my first film. We started working on the script, and then a few years later, in the summer of 2005, I came back to shoot the movie. Spent my entire fourth year of school in the summer after going around raising money for the film, and we came up with enough and had enough to make the film, and went after Will Patton and got him involved, and sort of the rest is history.
Now the writers that you mentioned are Travis Beacham and Christopher Whaled.
Yes.
If I'm pronouncing his name right.
Got them both, yeah.
Now, lots of people want to write and direct movies, but you, Travis and Christopher, appear to have cut in the line and kind of shortened the distance from point A to point B.
A little bit. As far as Travis and Chris go, Travis and Chris, I just noticed that when we were in school at the time that they were just incredibly talented and were writing much better stuff than everyone else. So I just sort of took note, and then when it was time for me to come up with the story of the Dog Days, I sort of enlisted them and said, hey, can you help me write this? And they said, sure. And, since then, Travis, when we graduated, Travis sold a spec script to New Line Cinema, which was called Killing on Carnival Row at the time, and Guillermo del Toro was attached to direct, and now Neil Jordan's been attached to direct for the last year or so, but I don't know if the project's actually going to get made or not, but because of that, Travis got a lot of attention, and he recently wrote a draft of the new Clash of the Titans that actually is getting made with Warner Brothers. And it's very cool. He got to write a draft alongside of Lawrence Kasdan, which was very strange for him and all of us, because these are the guys that we look up to.
Sure.
And then Chris Whaled immediately after school started working as an assistant at NCIS, the CBS show, they recognized his talent there fairly quickly too. And now I think he's written about 5 episodes for that show in the last year. So kind of early on, I found these guys in school that had this unusual writing talent, and I sort of had, I was studying directing and had the sort of the ambition to go out and just try anything and fail or succeed. So with that, I said, well, if you guys can write me the script, then I'll go out there and do my best to get the movie made. And we just kind of went balls to the wall and did it.
I would say so. I mean, it's a pretty phenomenal accomplishment. Like I say, I mean, and I talk to a lot of people who, this is their goal. They want to, they want to write, they want to produce, they want to direct, and yet it's a long way, and I mean, look at the success the 3 of you guys have had. This is amazing, really.
Now, it's strange. No, go ahead.
When you think about it, So you liked this little town of Edenton, and and so you came up with a story that puts a lot of warts. It's not in Edenton, but it's interesting that you saw this beautiful little town and you gave it a bad case of herpes.
Yeah, I know. We tried to tell the town, look, this film we're going to make here, it's not about the town. Edenton would have been a perfect name for the town in the film, but we decided not to use it because we didn't want people there to think we were writing about their town. But when I saw this beautiful place, and this sort of like idyllic southern paradise, it got us thinking, about the story as an overall, as a whole. And basically, the story we ended up coming with is basically just, it's a modern day allegory of, the fall of man from the garden, set in, the rural American South. And so our story sort of, if you were to take a literal adaptation of, sort of the Garden of Eden, the fall, all the way to the flood in Genesis, our story basically, chronicles the fall and sort of the disbursement of the people. And then, our story ends with, the flood, which is sort of, a symbolic beginning, symbolic note to a new beginning, a fresh beginning. The town's going to get a second chance. And, so, there is an element of that in the film, and that we wanted to make sure the town didn't think we were writing a story about them, but they got it. I think maybe a few of the older townsfolk, when we premiered the film there in the theater, may have thought we were saying something about their town, but ultimately we weren't. It's just a story.
Well, then I was going to ask you, so you have premiered the film there, so they did get to see it.
They did, yeah, and I think for the most part it was positive. I think it was like one of the highest, if not the highest, grossing film they had there in like the 76 years that theater's been on their main street. And the theater owner told me we beat Pirates of the Caribbean's record from like the year before. So
wow. Well, of course, when all the local landmarks did you use many locals as
We did, yeah. A lot of locals are extras, and they just ate it up and had a great time. And we used a lot of the local landmarks, like the courthouse that a lot of our scenes are staged in is a pre-Revolutionary War courthouse, and it was built in the 1700s and just beautifully restored. And so they're very proud of it. And North Carolina has listed it as the third most important building in the state, and behind the Capitol building and the huge Biltmore House in Nashville. So they let us use everything free of charge. I mean, it was amazing. We never paid for a location, which helped keep the cost down as well. And they just really embraced us, and sort of the Norman Rockwell sensibilities, were with the hearts of the people too. It's just made the film, the film's so hard to get made and so grueling, and production collapsed a couple of times while making it. So the fact that we were shooting in a town that was helping us just really was a positive blessing against everything else.
What surprised you about the process of raising money for film, and then also, coordinating everything that has to be done? What surprised you, and what was easier or tougher than you thought it was going to be?
It's always a lot harder than you think. I'm raising money. I'm in the middle of raising money again right now for 2 other projects, and it's just difficult because Dog Days hasn't been released yet, so I can't go back to the same investors. So it's just finding new investors is just a difficult thing. I mean, raising money for indie film is so brutal because there's no guarantees. The new, especially in this economy too, people want some sort of assurance. When we raised money for this film in 2005, it wasn't as bad. I mean, it was still very hard, but everybody had a little bit more money in their pockets. The stock market was doing really well, so we had quite a few people that were willing just to, send away a few bucks and say, yeah, we don't worry, if we don't make it back, we don't make it back. Which the case is different now.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, very much different now, and some of the producers, there's a pair of producers I'm working with right now, a guy named Gary Wheeler, and his last film, 20th Century Fox distributed, and Fox, at least on DVD, and Fox now, he sort of has this deal with them where they're planning on distributing the next few films that he does, which are all based off of one author's series of novels. So Fox is, in essence, trying to basically build a brand around this guy. So, working with a guy like that, it makes it a little easier because that you've got a film that Fox is going to distribute, and they'll pay you a certain amount of advance, in cash when you're done with the film, and you can get a certain amount from your foreign sales agent and a certain amount from the state tax credit, whichever state you shoot in. So that's actual cold, hard cash that you can raise for the film, up to a certain point, and adding up all those advances in the tax credit, saying, at the end of the day, if we never sell a DVD, we never sell our TV rights and never sold a DVD overseas, we know that we'll get at least this when we finish the film. So if you want to play it super conservatively, you could make, films, if you have that kind of setup, you could make films for that exact amount, till the cows come home. So that's kind of the model that we're working off now, sort of in this uncertain economy, but which is helping, but still, those amounts don't add up, 100% to, the budget that you need for the film. So there's still, a level of risk involved, and you just have to find investors that are willing to ride with you on that.
I don't recall if you said, how much did you raise for Dog Days of Summer? What was the budget?
Dog Days was actually quite a small budget. I used to be afraid to tell it, but I guess now that we've, sold the film and distributors picked it up, I've never actually said it publicly, so this would officially be the first time I've said this. But we raised just under $500,000 for the film. And did the film for with goods and services. I think maybe we spent $400,000 in cash, and then had goods and services added up to just under $500,000. But we never said that because when we started showing the film around, a lot of distributors were saying, "Oh, what'd you spend on this? $2.5, $3 million, $3.5," and so we just kept saying, "Yeah, yeah, I think that." So. Just because, we shot the film on 35, and basically everyone took a pay cut. The crew pretty much worked for free. They basically just worked for per diem. I mean, everybody below and below the line, and the cast pretty much all worked, for scale, and just because, everybody really enjoyed the story. So I won't be able to make a film that cheaply again.
Oh, you know that, right?
Yeah, and I realize that, because we just cut too many corners that as a first-timer you just realize, okay, that is definitely not a corner I am going to cut on my second or third film. So, because you end up, too, when it's said and done, you end up, if you're the director and producer like I am, you work so much on the film, 2-3 years after you've shot it, and people are still going, you're still working on that film? I'm like, yeah, I would at least put in 20 hours a week on this puppy still, and, you don't get paid for it. So, the next film I'm going to pay myself.
Well, is this, the DVD release is April 21st. Today is April 10th. What you've got going for it. Is this film profitable?
It should be. I mean, if we sell a decent amount of DVDs, it should be. You know, our foreign sales have been sort of lackluster, and we haven't sold our TV rights yet, so that will help. But it just, you know, ultimately depends on the number of DVDs we sell. I mean, we signed a good deal with our distributor, Anchor Bay Entertainment, and they're giving us quite a high percentage of each DVD sold. And you know, our attorneys who looked at the agreement, you know, we had received multiple distribution agreements for about a year and a half straight, and just didn't feel comfortable with signing any of them. A couple of them were from, you know, even companies bigger than Anchor Bay, but you know, none of the agreements were that great. And then Anchor Bay came along, and my attorney looked at the contract and said, "My gosh," he said, "this is the most fair distribution agreement I've seen in years." He's like, "We must sign this." So yeah, so I said, absolutely, I'm ready to, you know, get this film out there. Let's do it. So you know, we signed with Anchor Bay, and you know, assuming they're able to, you know, they've done their job so far. They've gotten the film out, you know, into Walmart and Target, Blockbuster, Best Buy. I mean, a bunch of stores that normally probably wouldn't take a film are as small as ours, but you know, Anchor Bay was able to do it, which I'm very you know, thankful for. And if they can sell a decent amount of DVDs, you know, everybody should be able to make a little bit of something off the film, you know, because we really didn't spend that much on it. So
well,
yeah.
Now, you said that you went after Will Patton for this movie. You actually had him in mind, or you knew someone who knew him? Why Will Patton?
Both. One, for years I've just loved the guy. Like, I thought he's one of the best, you know, American character actors, I think, you know, like working today. And especially in the 90s, he was huge, you know, and so I grew up on his films, you know, seeing his face all over the place. And I remember when The Postman came out, I was, I don't know, maybe 13 or 14 or something, and you know, he just terrified me watching him. And so when the character of Eli Cottonmouth came about, I just really wanted to, you know, him to play it. And sort of he had gone to the North Carolina School of the Arts in the 70s for 1 year. So I knew he had some ties to the school somehow, and there was a faculty member who taught at NCSA before I got there, who I guess was still in touch with him, a guy named Gary Hawkins, who made these really cool documentaries. One was called The Rough South of Larry Brown, and Will, I guess, sort of appeared in that for like a 5-minute segment. And so I had never met Gary Hawkins before, but had heard that they had this sort of this connection because I knew about the film. So with sort of a twist of godlike faith, we had made a short film. I can't remember if it was my 3rd or 4th year at school, and we were up at the Tribeca Film Festival with it. And some guys that had worked on the film that made the short went to a party one night, and Will was actually there, and he saw on their name tags that they were from the School of the Arts, and he kind of approached them and said, "Hey, you know, what's going on? What's going on with the NCSA alumni? You know, I'd love to work with some of you guys sometime. You know, just give me a shout. If you guys ever have something you'd like me to see." So he told these guys, get connected with this director, Gary Hawkins, and so I just kind of filed that away when they came back from the party that night and said, "Hey, we ran into Will Patton." I was like, "Oh my gosh." You know, and they said, "Yeah." He said, "If we ever want to do something with him, you know, get in touch with Gary Hawkins." I said, "I will do." So about a year later, when we had the script ready for Dog Days, you know, I went through sort of the alumni network and got in touch with Gary Hawkins, and then he put me in touch with Will and Will's manager, and they both loved the script, and you know, he signed up to do the film. We had some scheduling issues trying to get him, you know, trying to work around because he was shooting a couple other projects at the same time, but yeah, he did the film, and you know, we were just thrilled. And he really, I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the film yet or not, but he.
Oh yeah, no, I did.
Okay, cool. It's a very, very unique role for him. I think he had a lot of fun playing it. So I think people who are Will Patton fans out there will definitely get a kick out of this, because it's something that you don't get to see Will do every day.
And for people who miss the subtlety of it, you want to do your Will Patton imitation again?
Yeah, hey, just get in touch with Gary Hawkins and give me a call. Yeah, he's got a very interesting way of speaking, but yeah, I love it. It's very unique. You can be like in the living room working on something, or like in the kitchen like cooking, and a film is playing on TV, and you hear that voice, and you're like, oh, Will Patton's on TV. Let me go see what movie it is.
Saying that should have been your tip-off that I had seen the movie, because I recognized.
Exactly. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Either that, or you've seen all his other films. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was one aspect of this that was a little, I don't know, a little weird. When you have a strange man coming to town and suddenly dealing with young boys.
Yeah.
It can be a little,
a little.
Yeah, were you at all concerned about that aspect of it? That it might have implied there was something else going on? I mean, and it actually in the film, they kind of some of the characters talked about what's going on with that guy and those boys.
Right, which is why we approached it in the story, just to make sure that because we wanted people to know, like, yes, this is a unique situation with this stranger befriending these two kids, and the only people in this town that he sort of allows in his world or trusts are these two kids, because they're just a pair of innocent children, obviously, you've seen the film, so you know that nothing weird is going on between them, but we knew that that was a strange situation, so we decided to approach it in the script, and we also were very careful about that in the town to let everyone know while we were shooting, because when we got there to shoot and we started telling people what the story was about, some people got a little weirded out by it, because apparently there was like 18 years ago, before we shot the film there was an incident involving a daycare and some kids, and you can imagine. And so sort of the national media it descended upon that town for weeks at a time and made the town seem like a bunch of demons lived there. So they were very cautious at first when we showed up, and we let some of the town leaders and even at the that really cool old church where we shot, we let the pastor and everybody there read the script, just so that everybody would know that what they were getting involved with. But yes, that you're right. It's funny. It's something I don't think about now, but that is something that we had to address when we made the film.
I actually had watched the first half and then went back and started over again, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't misunderstanding that. And so, but I mean, there are, in this day and age, the way society is, there's a lot of, people are always nervous about stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, we actually, when the first time we screened it for a public audience, there's a tipping point in the film where you realize that Eli actually is innocent towards these boys as well, but his intentions, you're kind of asking yourself questions the whole time, and it's that point, without giving too much away to your audience, it's that point where, he opens up the eternal box and they step inside. That sarcophagus. When he first opened it up and stepped inside, the very first public screening we had, a woman screamed in the theater, and people were like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, but then when you see this, how the rest of the scene plays out, you're like, oh, well, maybe this Eli Cottonmouth, maybe he's not so bad to these kids,
Yeah,
So,
that was a moment when he opened the sarcophagus. I was like, what on earth is going on here? Which direction is this movie going?
It's a safe direction. It's been Dove approved, ages 12 and up. So,
so were there any stories that came from being on the set? Things that you learned from being around some of these experienced actors? Did you pick up anything from them? Did they offer any advice to you as kind of a newbie at this?
Oh yeah. Will and Richard Hurd and Greg Allen Williams, kind of our three seasoned adult actors in the film. You know, Richard from Seinfeld and Greg Allen from lots of series TV. Those three especially really were daily giving me advice on things, and especially Will, because Will was so, I wouldn't say concerned, but just very wanted to make sure me as a first-time director and him as the lead in the film and his character creating, this model in the film was such an important piece that, sort of I was on top of my game. But I learned a lot from those guys, and even little things like details like that I hadn't necessarily thought of before, having only done, student shorts and whatnot. But little things like, one day, the first day of the shoot with Will, we were shooting a scene inside Will's character's side room at the courthouse, and it was a scene with him and the two boys, and we're shooting sort of, alternate close-ups. We got the, your typical master, and then your two close-ups on opposite ends, and as I started to shoot the scene, the way we had lit it and everything, and for time, I went to shoot Will's close-up first. And he started saying, we should probably shoot the kids close up first, and didn't go into a lot of explanation about it. And I said, well, we're lit this way, we've got to move, we got to shoot. So he said, okay, we'll shoot mine first. So we shoot his close up, and get a few takes of it, and it's all good. And the kids are doing their thing off camera for him, reading for him. And he was reacting to the kids. And then when we, moved around to the other side and relit the scene to shoot the kids' close-ups, one of the kids, when Will started reading, Will started reading off camera for them, started bursting into tears in the shot. And, that's how the kid had been, had in his mind, I shouldn't say kid, I should say actor. That's how the child actor in his mind had decided to play the scene. So he was giving a completely different reaction than Will was receiving on Will's close-up. He had been saving it for his own close-up. So, Will said, whoa, we've got to, all my close-ups aren't going to match now, because, you've got a kid, who wasn't doing that when we were giving Will's close-up, and now on the other side, he's crying. And, when we cut the scene together, it's going to look like Will's character is unsympathetic, because you'll have a kid crying, and then you cut back to Will, and he's not reacting to him crying because he wasn't doing that on Will's close-up. So, one thing I learned out of there that Will and I sort of had this discussion about was that, if you're working with child actors, a lot of times, their best takes are early takes, and that they will, like that, they'll often save things for their close-ups. So it's best to shoot their close-ups first, so the adult actor can then adapt to the way that they've acted and then react to that on their close-ups. So, that was a big just kind of nice detail of thing that I wouldn't have learned otherwise, and he told me a story how the film The Client that he did, there's a scene with Brad Renfro where Will leans down and says something, we're gonna they got little electric chairs for children, and fry up like a piece of bacon. I don't know if you remember that scene, but and he does this thing where he goes and tries to scare the kid, and it's a great little moment. But when they cut to Brad Renfro, he's not really reacting, and he said it was because they shot Will's close-up first, and he did that, and he said off camera Brad just jumped a mile in the air, but by the time they got to do Brad's close-up and Will did it again, Brad was ready for it, so it wasn't as shocking to him anymore. So whereas an adult actor could probably pull that same reaction out of themselves again, children actors, they haven't had as much experience, so a lot of the times the first instincts you get from them are the right ones. So after that, I just started shooting all the kids' close-ups first so that Will could do whatever he wanted off camera, and then if we got a reaction out of the kids that we liked, then, we'd use that, and he would repeat that on his close-ups. So there were sorts of billions of things like that little details that you learned along the way, and I'm sure that you will on every film.
So, what's next for you? You've got another film that you're collecting money for. Do you want to tell people anything about that in case they have some spare change in their wallets?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I'd say definitely get the Dog Days DVD and get a chance to check it out for better or worse. I co-wrote a film called The Trial, which is a surprise, a courtroom drama, and they are shooting that this summer. They're kind of they're restructuring some things because they lost a portion of their funding, but they're working on getting that back now, and they had started signing contracts with cast and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to seeing who they get in that, and I think that film's supposed to come out in 2010 and probably have at least a limited theatrical. And then I'm also working on a novel adaptation for a book called Jimmy, which is about a mentally challenged boy who interacts with angels that no one else can see, and he calls these people watchers. And I think the plan is to shoot that before the end of the year, most likely in North Carolina as well. And we're on it's a novel adaptation, and we've done quite a few drafts of the script now, and it's getting better. So we're going to be doing the financing phase of that here very shortly and over the summer. So we hope to shoot that by the end of the year. So those are two to look out for. And in the meantime, hopefully enjoy Dog Days.
Terrific. Well, folks, Dog Days of Summer, starring Will Patton, debuts on DVD on April 21st. And you can find it, as Mark mentioned, at major retailers such as Walmart, Target, Best Buy, and others. Or you can order it online at Amazon.com or even MrMedia.com, MRMedia.com. And the film has a website, too. It's www.dogdaysfilm.com. That's all solid, dogdaysfilm.com. Mark, I'm very envious. I'm long past my getting out of college years, but who wouldn't want to have the opportunity to make a big film like this and have that experience and continue to do it. So congratulations on that, and thanks so much for coming on Mr. Media today.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, no, I really appreciate being on the show. This has been fun.
Oh, my pleasure, and good luck. We'll be very interested to see how things go, and hopefully maybe people hearing this will want to invest in the next film.
Yeah, absolutely. Contact me through the website of the film. All the emails, if they're not blasphemous, eventually get sent to me. So, yeah.
So you have a blasphemy filter? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no. Yeah, we have a little bit of a filter. If people are like, you shouldn't read this one, But for the most part, I'll read them all. So feel free to contact me through the website. And if you, after renting or buying the film, if you enjoyed it or even hated it, feel free to email me.
Very good. Well, listen, thanks again. Enjoyed having you, and look for good things for you.
Cool. Well, thank you very much.
All right, Mark. Take care.
Hey, you too. Bye.
And folks, for more interviews with actors, directors, producers, and screenwriters, surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. That's where you can listen to my earlier conversations with Billy Bob Thornton, Kirk Douglas, Ali Sheedy, Leah Thompson, Will Packer, David Simon, David Fury, and many more. And please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media, casting a vote for Mr. Media, or marking Mr. Media as one of your favorites, whether you listen on Blog Talk Radio, MySpace, Facebook, High Five, Tag, Bebo, Orkut, Digital Journal, Podcast Pickle, Vox, Pointer Online, iGoogle, Yahoo, Folio, Mediafly, Podfeed.net, Blueberry, Zencast, or Odeo. And subscribe to Mr. Media on iTunes, and you'll never miss a show. Just search Mr. Media Interviews from within iTunes and subscribe for free. You can also listen with a piece of string and a tin can in many locations. If you've got an idea for a guest, email me directly at bob@andelman.com. That's ANDELMAN. You can also follow me on Facebook or on Twitter, www.twitter.com/Andelman. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate you sharing a piece of your day with Mr. Media. Thanks for listening, and please come back.